Hello and welcome to 2020 Coaching Convos with me, Julie Crabb. Series 5 is called Case by Case, and we focus on reflections with guest coaches from cases in their coaching practice. Now, you'll always hear me mention confidentiality in these episodes, in the introductions to the episodes for sure, because we'll be talking about experiences of coaching with clients. But since it's a really fundamental aspect of our professional coaching practice with our ethics and our values, none of what we say or we share will be attributable to any individual with whom we've worked. Okay, so now I've got my tongue and my mouth in gear. We're going to be focusing on single case studies and specific techniques or practices that we're going to explore. And we'll just see what we can learn from that. So this week, my guest is someone who I noticed in the Zoom room when I was on a trauma-informed and post-traumatic coaching training session run by Pam Rigdon. And sometimes I find a cheeky little LinkedIn message makes a great connection, and it did here. So this person set up a business called Reframes, focusing on leadership and coaching and thinking. And she helps leaders to think clearly and lead with intention and stay connected to what really matters. And she describes herself as a coach, a supervisor, and I'm hearing this phrase more recently. It might be because I'm just associating and looking out for it, but also a thinking partner. So welcome, Gill Frame of Reframes.
Thank you. Thank you for having me today.
You're very welcome. It's lovely to have you. Lovely to speak with you again. And how are you doing today, Jill?
I'm doing very well, thank you, despite a fairly dreich day here just outside of Edinburgh, but I'm inside, so nothing to complain about.
That's good. That's the word I haven't
How are
heard
you?
for a while, dreich. I'm good, thank you.
Good.
Okay, so last time we met online, we talked about the thinking training, reflective practice sessions that you were involved in. And it was all related to the wonderful Nancy Klein book called The Promise That Changes Everything, I Won't Interrupt. And thank you so much for recommending that book. I quickly bought and practically devoured it. I've really enjoyed reading it.
Excellent. Good, good. It's a great book and some great practices in it. So
yeah, it's really at an extreme of something that I try to do. Yeah, it's kind of, it takes it to another level that I've not worked with before. Yeah. So
yes, and I remember my first formal thinking practice, my first formal thinking session, and thinking, this is really weird and quite intense. But actually, once you get into the practice of it, the depth of thinking that you can really explore just by having somebody else give you generative attention is marvelous. So, highly recommend it.
yeah, good stuff. Maybe we'll be talking more about that as we go along.
We
So,
might.
first question then, Jill, how did you arrive at the coaching work that you do?
So, I've been coaching in people and leadership development for over 30 years, which feels quite a scary number to think about. But I think what more drew me towards coaching, towards the sort of latter end of that part of my career, is because I really enjoy the presence it allows people to have and what that allows them to grow. So it gives, for me, coaching is a rare space, often very rare, for people to be able to hear themselves think. So not advising or directing or being told what to do, but actually thinking for themselves and coming up with their own ideas, their own solutions, their own ways of doing things, which will feel much more natural to them than if they try and follow what somebody else tries to do. So, and I believe my job as a coach, and I think I'm probably stealing this from Clare Norman, is to help people to do their best thinking.
That's a lovely way to describe it. And 30 years of experience is incredible to draw on. Yeah. As you were talking, I was thinking about a podcast I was listening to last night. Actually, I think it was a webinar selling a particular kind of hypnosis. And it outlined again the brain waves that we use at different levels of operation. and they were equating thinking that occurs in hypnosis with the kind of thinking that occurs in meditative um, states as well, mindful meditation. And I was thinking that
Hmm.
makes just such perfect sense that a lot of um, thinking for ourselves, as you described it, occurs when we slow down. When we're busy thinking, it's very hard to be creative, but slowing down, whether it's just sitting or walking or being in a slow state, really helps, doesn't it?
Yeah. And I guess it sort of relates to, and I'm just going to completely forget the name of the book and the person who wrote it, but the systems one and systems two thinking, where one is very deep and very thoughtful, and one is very reactive. And so it's about trying to sort of stay in that first state as much as possible.
Mm. Is that thinking fast and thinking slow?
It is, yes, thank you. I had a complete brain blip.
It's okay. I wouldn't normally be able to go just like that, but obviously today's a good day for the brain connections. Okay. So yeah, let's move straight into your case study then, Jill. Can you give us a bit of background and context to it?
Yes, so the first case study that I thought about when I was preparing for today was one about a leader who was in transition. So, senior leader already, but stepping into a bigger role in the same organization that they'd been in before, um, and links very closely actually with the thinking fast and thinking slow element. They were somebody who was very capable and respected, but they were starting to feel really stretched and unsure. So they'd taken that next step up. They were leading peers or previous peers, and wanted to think about how they could increase their confidence and feel more sure of themselves. Um, and also get a handle on just the sense of busyness that they had as they took on a new role. And what often happens when people take on a new role, particularly the same organization, is that they think about all of the things that they need to start doing that are different in this new role, but they forget about what they should be stopping doing. So they also, in addition to feeling not great about themselves in the role in terms of their confidence, also felt like there was so much that they had to do and that they were letting lots of people down and dropping lots of balls. Um, and as we talked during the coaching sessions, they brought up the fact that they didn't feel like they had any time to think. They were constantly firefighting, um, always being very reactive and very busy. Um, and one of the metaphors that I find myself using a lot um, is it's like playing tennis. And when you're being very reactive and you're very busy and you're sort of trying to sort of focus on what's coming next, it's almost like you're playing tennis at the net where the ball isn't in, like both of you are at the net and the ball isn't in the air for very long and you're just constantly reacting to where the next ball is coming from. And you don't have time to think about it. You just have to go and hit the ball back. And what we talked about during coaching was, first of all, how can you get yourself further away from the net towards the baseline so that the ball is in the air for longer, so that you have more time to think about where you want to return that ball. Do you want to use your backhand, your forehand, or do you want to choose to miss that ball altogether? Because sometimes we also have to decide whether we're not going to do something anymore or whether if we're going to have to disappoint somebody, let's be choiceful about who we're going to disappoint and why, and about how we can then repair that damage if there is any damage. So being able to have that picture of sort of consciously stepping back and giving yourself more space helped this person to really make better decisions. And they felt like they had a bit more perspective. Um, they realize that they can't please everybody all of the time. And so choosing who they don't please again and being in control of that seemed to feel like it made a really big difference to how they felt about their situation. And that in itself seemed to improve their confidence. Um,
Mm.
so I would say that by the end of the sessions that we had, they were much more calm internally and externally. They were seen as being more in control. Um, and they led, I guess, with more choice and more presence, and and also knew where their barriers were. They knew what they wanted to be able to say no to, and why they were saying no to it.
Mm. That's a lovely metaphor, isn't it? It's very, as you were talking about it, I was hearing in my own head lots of different other alternatives of ways of, using the metaphor to describe feelings and situations and actions that could be taken or not taken. Um, how important is it that your client could relate to that particular metaphor well, or is it okay that they just knew a little bit about tennis?
And they didn't. So I use, there will be, if there are any of my coaching clients listening, several of them will recognize that, and they'll maybe think that this case study is about them. I use it a lot. Sometimes it doesn't resonate, in which case it's okay. That's fine. It's just that's my image. And then my question to them would be, so what would that look like? What would be an equivalent or an alternative for you? A number of my clients work in an industry connected to sports, so it tends to resonate quite well. But I think most people have at least watched tennis, even if they haven't played it, and they can see the how the metaphor works, and then, as I say, adapt it to something else if it's what works better for them.
Mm. So it's very
But I use
relatable.
metaphor a lot.
Well,
So,
yes, it seems that many people are mostly visual, um, in the way that we perceive the world,
and
and
I'm one of those weird people that doesn't necessarily think in I don't think in words, I tend to think in pictures. So that it tends to work well for me.
yes, yeah.
Yeah.
And so, once the person has grasped the metaphor and is able to relate it to the scenario, how does that then translate into actions or options for them?
I think being able to have some form of abstract way of thinking about something gives you some kind of an anchor that says, in that moment when I'm noticing that, it's almost like there's lots of other tennis players on the other side of the net and they're all throwing balls at me at the same time. Which one do I respond to? Is to go, oh, hold on a minute, there's four people on the other side of the court. Okay, so how do I take a breath and step back a bit to be able to see which of those balls is most important now, and what else I might want to think about, because what's urgent might not necessarily be important. And so by being able to have something that just triggers that pause in somebody's thinking and allows them space to be able to consciously then make decisions rather than just the very quick response, does seem to really make a difference. Added to that, and one of my other favorite phrases, which lots of my clients and non-clients actually might recognize, is a quotation that says, "We don't learn by experience, we learn by reflecting on experience." And for me, a big part of coaching is bringing some of those experiences and saying, well, actually, what am I learning from that? What am I going to take from that that will help me the next time I'm in the same or a similar situation?
Mm,
And so having that thinking space where somebody else holds it for you to be able to say, well, what other choices could you have had in that moment that you didn't think of?
mm,
And how might you bring those into the next time you're in a similar situation, I think does make a really big difference.
mm. Yeah, no, that's really interesting. And Jill, given the things that you've talked about, the holding the space, the using the visuals and the metaphors, um, what would your clients say is unique about you in the way that you coach? What have they particularly enjoyed and appreciated?
Um, so the feedback that I get regularly, which always surprises me actually, and I've never run it past my husband to see how much he laughed, would be that there's some form of very calm, reflective presence when I'm coaching that just allows people to settle. And immediately another metaphor came to mind, and it's one where people feel like You know, when you're in a snow globe and you shake it and there's lots of snow that's all around. And in coaching, what you do is you allow some of that snow to settle and just sort of it removes some of that sort of blizzard that might be around and just bring everything down to a calm state where you can see really clearly. And
Mm,
I seem the feedback that I get is that I'm able to generate that for people so that they can see more clearly.
mm. That's wonderful. That is a real gift, actually. Is that something you'd say you've learned, or is just part of how you are as a person, how you've kind of developed as a person?
So I don't think it's how I am as a person because I don't think that I'm a calm presence in a lot of situations. But I think what coaching experience and coaching training, and I do a lot of learning for myself. So I describe myself as a greedy learner. I love learning about new stuff. Um, but I think that the experience and the reflection actually on experience that I've done has enabled me to be able to automatically, and when I'm in coaching, be at the back of the net, to use the same metaphor, and to just notice what I'm noticing, um, and then to talk about that and to raise that and to explore that in ways that people seem to find helpful.
Mm, incredible. Yes, that's really interesting. I'm very much in the metaphor that you've described because I was thinking, oh, well, also, wouldn't it be interesting to be the umpire and be in the third position too? Yeah.
Yes, yeah,
Mm,
and I guess so. I work as a coach supervisor in terms of supporting other coaches in their practice. And I work as a mentor coach. And as a mentor coach, you actually would be the umpire. So you'd be reviewing a coaching session that's been recorded either visually or on audio, um, and being able to notice both sides of the game and to explore that with the coach. So yeah, that's sort of how I see that umpire piece happening.
mm,
So
yeah.
my teeth aren't in today either, I don't think.
So, Jill, that sounds a really fascinating case study. What else is there that would want to draw out from it that you think fellow coaches might be interested in understanding better?
Um, For that particular case study, I think that there is something about recognizing the space that we hold. So, as coaches, I think that it's easy to get drawn into the same patterns as your client is in. So, what we call parallel processing, where if your client comes in and they are sort of at the net, it's very easy to be drawn to the net to them and to respond in the same way so that you're sort of mirroring almost their behavior. And by being able to, again, notice that that is what's tending to happen, and again, find ways of being able to help them experience a different space, I think is really important.
Mm, yes, parallel processing. How does that differ to something I've called dual awareness?
So you'd have to explain to me your definition of dual awareness,
Good
if you don't
answer.
mind.
Yes, my understanding of that is that you have an awareness of what's going on for you as a response to what you're hearing from the client, as well as giving full attention to their state and their expression and what they're saying. So it's like being able to, I guess, associate
So
and
it
then
sounds like
dissociate.
yeah. Sounds like we're talking about something very, very similar. In parallel processing, I think that you have to be aware of that parallel process to be able to then change it. But otherwise, you can get drawn into it very, very quickly without even noticing.
Mm, yeah,
Sounds like we're talking about something very similar.
it does, doesn't it? Yes. I hadn't really appreciated it when I came into coaching that there is a whole language around it that, and sets of concepts, just as there is, I guess, in any industry or uh, anything that's got a theoretical framework around it. Yeah, yeah, good stuff.
And
And
unfortunately, in coaching, some of the words that we use, like supervision, mean something completely different outside of the coaching environment because supervision isn't somebody looking over a coach's shoulder and seeing what they're doing and being part of a session. It's a completely different experience. But we use, unfortunately, similar words that are used elsewhere in very different circumstances.
Yes, indeed. Yeah. So as a coach of leaders, Jill, is there anything over the time that you've been coaching people in different leadership positions that you've noticed is a perhaps a common issue with leadership?
Um, Often what comes up is some form of imposter syndrome. There's usually, there's something that regularly can come up about, well, why am I in this position? And has anyone noticed that I'm not quite right for it yet? So that can come up quite regularly. That can come up when I'm working with coaches as well as when I'm working with leaders. I think it's a universal truth to a certain extent.
Hmm.
But otherwise, I think one of the things that I love about coaching is that even though the same topic or the same subject might come up, the individual makes it unique every single time. So there might be things that are very similar with lots of coaching conversations, but that individual makes it a unique experience because they are a unique individual.
Mm,
So,
yes, and have their own
and as somebody who
perception.
gets bored really easily, that's what keeps it exciting and interesting.
Hmm. That's interesting. So did you just say you get bored very easily?
I do, yes,
And yeah, I can kind of relate that to the greedy learner as well, the wanting to
indeed.
build on your knowledge. Yeah, good stuff. Okay. Um, okay, so we are coming up to the edge of our time now, Jill. It does seem to go ever so fast. Um, I'm just wondering,
It
could
does.
you, I'm going to ask you if you wouldn't mind just drawing together in perhaps a few sentences the key things that you think have been particularly instructive or informative about the case that you've described.
So I think when I was preparing for this, what struck me in terms of some of the key elements are that there's something very, very powerful about an individual finding space, first of all, to do some thinking about what they do, so about their practice as a leader. And I think it's something that we don't do enough of in any profession. Is actually, we do what we do. We don't think about how we do what we do to a great extent. And I think there's a lot of power in doing that because it helps us to see what's working and do more of it, as well as see if something isn't working and what might be new or different that could be more helpful. I think it's there are probably some people in the world who can do that by themselves, and I'm in awe of them if they can. I know that I can't. And in the same way that I often say, it's like tickling. You can't really tickle yourself and it have the same effect as it does when somebody else does it. Having somebody else there to be, first of all, to be a good listener and to not interrupt your thinking, but also to ask you the questions that you wouldn't think of asking yourself to deepen your thinking is where coaching becomes really powerful. And that for me is sort of it runs throughout all of my coaching supervision sessions is how can I really help deepen your thinking so that you can make choices that are the right ones for you at that right time.
Mm. Wow, that was so eloquently put. And I love the idea of having a tickling thought or somebody to help tickle my thoughts, maybe
Yeah.
even. Yes.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, fascinating. Okay. Um, Now you're a coach, a supervisor, and a thinking partner. Um, what have you got in the pipeline, Jill?
I don't have anything particularly in the pipeline. My conscious choice, based on a lot of coaching and reflection and supervision, is that I only want to spend my time doing meaningful things with people who care and people I care about.
Mm,
And as such, I just want to keep doing more of some of the things that I'm currently doing. Um, I I love to work with leaders who want to do more deep thinking and work with coaches who want to think about their coaching practice. Um, I offer a monthly space to reflect session, which is an hour of space to think, and there is some guiding sort of framework around that, or you can just use the time to think by yourself. It happens on Zoom, usually on the last Wednesday of every month. And I offer that on a pay-as-you-can basis. So you can pay any amount that you want, or you can pay nothing if that's the financial circumstances that you find yourselves in. And there's no judgment in any amount that you choose to pay. But I'm more interested, I think, in having really thoughtful conversations with people because I find it fascinating and I think it's helpful. And so, yeah, there's nothing else that I'm sort of going down the route of at the moment.
Mm, perfect. Thank you so much. And we'll make sure that we include those reflective practice sessions. I know you called them reflective thinking sessions, didn't you?
Thank you.
In your episode description. Perfect. Well, we need to draw this to a
Thank
close,
you.
Jill, sadly, but thank you very much, Gill Frame of Reframes. And thank you to
Thank you.
listeners and watchers. So if you like what you see and hear, then please like and subscribe and share. And tell me what you want to hear more of in 2020 Coaching Convos with me, Julie Crabb.